Where would you say, percentage-wise, do a lot of your ideas for new products, do they come from within or from acquisitions or from customer? I mean, I know that Microsoft is always focused on engaging the customer's voice, but in terms of a sort of overall picture, in terms of where new ideas come from, is there any sort of breakdown, or is that not really?
I don't know how. I wouldn't know how to put a percentage on it.
No.
There is a huge amount of innovation that comes from having that two-way relationship with your customers and your partners. Yeah. And it's interesting upstairs, like kind of when we were talking with the rest of the CMOs about the challenges of being in marketing, and how we've got to like authentically show that we're listening to what our customers or our partners are saying about us, and being able to respond. I don't think it's necessarily about showing that we're listening and responding. That should be natural. It should be about always having that two-way like kind of dialogue or relationship anyway, because a company can't. Well, they can, but I don't know how long it will last and how sustainable it is. But if a company designs a solution in complete isolation with any feedback from any customers or partners or people intending to use it, then that's only got a shelf life, because it's just one version or one person's perception of what might be useful. Yeah. And if a customer or partner says like, I want something, they might be in isolation as well. I spoke to you before about like kind of the internet fridge. Like probably about 10 years ago, everyone was going, fridges are going to get so intelligent that they're connected to the web, and you've got a screen on the front. They'll know when you've run out of milk. They'll order it. Ocado will come in and deliver it, and it's amazing. And how many people do you know that uses internet fridges? Because they do. You can sell them. They're on retail, but actually, I don't know that many people that actually use them. Because maybe one person thought that was a great idea to have an internet fridge, that they didn't have to bother doing any of their grocery shopping anymore. But a lot of people like going out and doing it. They like the physical feeling of going out, meeting others, going to the supermarket, blah, blah, blah. So I think it can't be one or the other. A company can't come up with an idea in isolation, and a customer can't come up with an idea in isolation. It has to be what is technically possible, and what do we want to try and create. And then actually what are the needs and the solutions that you want to make to make your lives easier. And then if you have a conversation about it, something amazing comes out of it. So I don't know where would you put a percentage on that, but I think it's just this ongoing dialogue.
Yeah, it's a really good point about the internet fridge, because you mentioned people still like to go out to the groceries. Like I was reading an article about the fact that I think Waitrose in Chelsea is sort of one of the main ways of meeting somebody as a mate in Chelsea. So you can't possibly, as an engineer, be thinking, well, this isn't going to work because of that. And I suppose it's sort of, does it go into trial and error? Sort of, you've got to test, have an idea, filter, choose which ones, and then prototype it to actually see if it's going to work. Is that?
I definitely think from my background being more kind of internet-based and internet solutions or internet services-based, certainly how we built something like Messenger, which was hugely popular with children, to a new way of talking to each other, a new way of sharing stuff. That was all about, we'd push out a particular function or a feature, then people would come back and say, this is how I use it, this is what really works, this is what doesn't work. Something that we didn't anticipate, and we got like kind of very clear feedback quite early on from customers on that particular technology. Was it wasn't necessarily about the emoticons and about the kind of style and all that stuff. It was about the immediacy, as in I'd be able to tell exactly when you were online, and the fact that I knew you were online, so I could be able to talk to you straight away, rather than the failings of it, or not failings, but the difference between that and a mobile phone is you don't know if someone's going to be able to pick up or not. And sometimes you hear these crazy people say like, oh, well, I didn't want to ring you just in case I was interrupting. Right. Okay, but that's when I don't answer.
Yeah, that's what a voicemail's for.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's still like this kind of behaviour, or I don't want to interrupt. Whereas Messenger was like, I could see what you could set your status. I'm busy, I'm on a call, I'm available. And people really liked that just one feature people loved, and so they wanted to get that on their phones. Which I thought was like, why would you want that on your phones? Because if you've got a phone, you can just call someone, and that's how you'd communicate. And they're like, no, I really like it, because then I can see if they're busy in their meeting in the call, or if they're available. Then I don't mind calling them.
Right. Okay.
So things like that, you can't predict that's an emotional response from a whole group of customers, that they'll tell you, like, this is what I really value, this is what really works for me, this is what doesn't.
But let's just talk for a second, if we can, about that, the customer versus the engineers. And I know it doesn't need to be versus, but I think Steve Jobs is quite famous for saying that we create what we think is cool and what we would want, and then we send it into the marketplace and sort of, and then get some customer feedback. But in terms of the innovation, it never really came from the customer, I don't believe. There is that sort of tug and war. Does it come from engineers, or does it come from listening to customers? Can you elaborate on what you think is the sort of the right innovation way of doing things there?
I don't know what the right one is. I think that was definitely the right one for Apple. At their point in time as a company, they've been dark for quite a long time. They hadn't had a real super successful product or solution in market for a while, and then they came out with something, and they were able to control the whole experience, which it's a really wonderful thing if you can do it. So you design the product, you design the packaging, you design the experience of when someone buys the product. You're in control of the retail experience when somebody goes in and how they get serviced. And all the way through to then they're using the product, they're downloading services to that product, enhancing their experiences. What Apple did beautifully there was think about the entire the entire chain of events that would make me as a consumer or me as a customer feel good about every single interaction I had with Apple. And that's if you can do that, if you've got a business model that enables you to do that whole demand chain, and that's a incredibly powerful and probably for internal people, really proud moment to say we've come up with this idea and it's come out in this emotion with the end customer. And I think there are probably many more examples that I'm not bright enough to be able to remember at this point in time, that where somebody's been able to do that, they've controlled the whole experience from start to finish, and and then looped round with the customers. Microsoft doesn't have that whole experience in its control. Microsoft has a great ability to build solutions. But then we partner with hardware providers, we partner with retailers, we partner with original equipment manufacturers, we partner with operators to bring those types of experiences to the market. And therefore we have to have an ongoing two-way discussion with all of those people to make those things happen. I think where Microsoft has really done a great job is, and you used to hear it quote a lot, but not so much anymore. But for every kind of dollar that Microsoft makes, $8 is made by its partners or its customers or its ecosystem, and that's the kind of an inbred value in Microsoft. It's not just about making the money for Microsoft; it's about making an economy for lots of other people to prosper.
Because you call them Microsoft partners, right? If you're a supplier, it's the same type of ethos,
thing. It's like, no, well, if you're not successful, then neither are we. So we're invested in your success, and that's an example of where it wouldn't work if Microsoft just said, look, this is it, and we're not sharing, and we're just going to ship something that the engineers have built, but we haven't really listened to you or your business models to what would work for you. So I think they're two really extreme examples. And then you might look at other people who are shipping internet services or web services who are probably somewhere in between the two. They're not always in control of the whole demand chain or the whole experience that the customers get. But they're also probably got some dependencies on great smart partnerships and other technologies to bring their stuff to life. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way of doing it.
No.